Now, before we get too far away from the ideas of the last section we just listened to, let me go back to the idea of set point, and let me go back to the idea of higher self and lower self, because this is incredibly important to understand. It's very important to begin to understand this universe, this planet. It really does work by way of physics. It really does work by way of energy. It really does work by way of laws. Really and truly. These are not hard concepts to get if you couch them correctly. You know, you don't take a 10th grader or an 8th grader and bring them up into the PhD level of physics with all that mathematical stuff they don't have and say, here, now understand this and do this paper. It won't work. But you can take the same exact idea and couch it in such a way as to make very clear sense of it without all those mathematical formula that they just don't have. Okay? So that's how we're going to approach this. Now, set point, higher self and lower self. Very important concepts to understand when you're looking at the laws of free will, especially when you're looking at the laws of free will. And just in case you're not sure that free will is always in operation, whether you know it or not, listen, you wouldn't be able to cook an egg without free will. You wouldn't be able to tie your shoes. And at the subconscious level, you may not realize it, but as you travel through life, you keep accumulating stuff whether you know it or not. It's like you look back after 10 or 20 years and you just think, how in the world did all of this stuff just end up here? And then you look around and say, wow, I've got to do some cleaning. This is unbelievable. How did I collect all of this stuff? You collected all of that stuff through free will. It happens to everybody. That's just the way it is. So this is very serious in operation. And it's happening, and we don't know it's happening because we don't think about it. But the people running the world system think about it. The people running the programs and the institutions that create these ideologies, oh, they think about it intensively, people. They think about it a lot. They pay people 6 figures just to sit around thinking about this and how to employ it to their agendas in the world system. But we, the people, are not the world system. We, the people, may be trapped in it, but we, the people, don't have to stay there as long as we can tune. And that's why I want to talk about the tuning of the higher self and lower self. I want to talk about set point. That's your basic tune, how you are. Your set point. Is it a high frequency set point or is it a low frequency set point? Do you contemplate things like esoteric ideas and thoughts and thinking? Or do you just run around going, yeah, I want what I want when I want it, yeah, and I want it now, and I don't care who I have to hurt to get it? That's low frequency set point. And I'm giving you the massive extremes. Let's look at this for a second. Let's jump inside the world of very, very, very old religion. Well, not really that old, but let's jump inside the world of very old religion. Let's go back to the year 0 and then to the time after Christ dies. They kill him and then he comes back and then he goes up to the mountain with Elijah and Moses and then he floats off and blah, blah, blah. All that stuff. We learned it a long time ago. Now, this new thing begins because he's in the business of creating new paradigms. That's what the guy was doing. He was in the business, he's still in the business, as a matter of fact, in my opinion, of creating new paradigm. But what kind of paradigm was he creating? What kind of physics was he introducing? What kind of science was he teaching? What sort of tuning, teaching, tuning, education was going on, that these people, which, I mean, if you don't believe that the Romans keep very serious records and can prove everything I'm about to tell you, you don't know very much about Rome. Okay, you need to study up and understand this stuff was really seriously going on. It was freaking the Romans out, literally freaking them out. But the paradigm left behind was that these people that were picking up the way, that we're calling it the way back then, it was producing these miraculous powers, but it was nothing anybody wasn't able to do. It wasn't some special machine or some special thing. It was just that they were understanding themselves. Oh, we're created beings and we're on Earth, and here's how Earth works. Now, they weren't understanding it through the science and physics of the 21st century. Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. They didn't even have electricity. But they were understanding it. I wasn't going to say they didn't have running water, but the Roman Empire did have running water and flushing toilets. Okay? These people weren't stupid. So they understood it in their way. But the power they were deriving from that was a paradigm that Rome was afraid of. And Rome was correct in the sense that this is going to spread. Well, of course it's going to spread. I mean, don't be ridiculous. Of course it's going to spread. When you run across a healer, as long as you're not ideology upped, that's a horrible way to say, your head's so full of ideology you classify it as the devil or some wicked, evil, heathen, pagan thing and run for your lives. You know, as long as you're not like that and you understand, wow, this is a special kind of science and physics, this is a special kind of an ability, this person has some kind of word power that they can do this thing, and I would like to do it too. Why not? I mean, this is the human design. This human could do it, why can't I do it too? That's the kind of thing that was going on, you see? And that's why it was spreading. Now, understand this. The Christ was teaching people who and what they are. The Christ was also teaching them about something called dimensions. He was telling them, okay, here's other dimensions stacked upon these dimensions, stacked upon those dimensions, and here's the whole spirit world, and here's a world of Holy Spirit, here's a world of angels, here's a world of this, here's a world of that. And he was also teaching the methods. Here's how you tune yourself. Okay? Here's how you tune yourself. Now, by the time of the Roman Empire and Christianity becoming, here's the official Roman Empire religion, a lot of that stuff was gone. You know, by the time of like those days, which is hundreds of years later, that stuff was gone. You might find it way out in the monastery land, the desert fathers or whatever you want to call it. You might find that tucked away in some monastery somewhere where it was producing healers. But for the most part, it wasn't. So obviously things had changed. People were learning different things. People were getting different ideas. People were being filled with ideology instead of raw truth. But when you look at the wealth of evidential stories from the Romans and other people saying, hey, these people were doing some bizarre stuff. And even though we, who are tied to the gods, talking about the Romans now, even though we, who are tied to the gods and we serve the gods, hey, we're not doing this stuff. And they're all scratching their heads, going, how come? How is this possible? Well, we gotta kill them. We gotta kill them all. They're a threat. So that's what happened. So, but when you look at some of those teachings, and some of the stuff is still left, and especially the part about faith. When you look at faith, you're dealing in the world of the the laws, rather, the cornerstone laws of free will. It's just that they explain it so weird today that they make it some big religious thing when in fact it's a physics thing. You're tying into other frequencies. It's just what we looked at in the last segment of this set of recordings, but now you're adding in the world of dimensions. You're adding in the world of dimensions. And you better understand what you're adding in. That's another part. It's very important to understand the process, yes, but it's also very important to understand the dimensions you're targeting and what you're doing. Very important stuff. And the reason I'm telling you all of this is because we're talking about set point, and we're talking about the higher self and the lower self. You see, the lower self cannot see outside of itself. It just can't see. It ends at the end of its flesh. That's where it ends. It can't see past that. It just can't. It says, what is my flesh and blood being desire? Because that's what I want right now, and I'm going to get it at all costs. And I don't care about you or anybody else. You're just in my way. I'm going to crush you. I'm going to destroy you to get what I want. Because I am a lower set being with a lower vibrational frequency set point. And even though that person may seem very intelligent when you're talking to them, they might have a Harvard degree. Look at the banking industry. I'm not making this up. They might have degrees out the yin-yang. They might be like one of the smartest people you've ever talked to. But that doesn't mean they're dealing in the set point that is tuned to high frequency vibration. It doesn't mean that at all. They're not thinking in terms of, planetary system thinking, yes, righteousness. Oh, I get it now. The whole planet works like this. No. They're not thinking that at all. And they might seem incredibly bright. They might seem incredibly brilliant, and parts of them are. But that doesn't mean their set point is dealing with and interacting with the righteousness system. Because in their particular cases, and we're using analogies here, they're not dealing in that. They're dealing in the world system. I want what I want when I want it. I want all your money. And I'm going to get all your money. Come hell or high water, I don't care how many of you got to die. I want all of these trillions of dollars. You know, we're using the banking system, and I better stop that because I'm going to get myself in trouble. But I'm going to pause here and get a cup of coffee, make sure I don't go too far. But their set point is dealing with vibrational frequencies, because the whole thing is about energy and vibration. Even if you look, let's go down to the level of subatomic particles. You look at an atom. Well, there's forces inside of an atom. That is the spirit component of the atom. The atom has 4 components too, especially when atoms clump together and make a molecule. Now you really have 4 components, and it builds upon itself. But the spirit component is from the tiniest little thing, where things are created from nothing, but they're created from nothing because of force, because of force, because of force, because of spirit component. Now, you people that are not geared to think this way, I'm not going to go any further because this could get very confusing very fast. But just know, just keep that in mind when you're thinking about this thing, because we're talking about the laws of free will. We're also talking about the living universe, the conscious universe, how we are designed, how we're set up, how it all works. Because we need to harness it, especially in this day and age, 2016. We need to harness it like never before. Because the world system ideas, the world system ideologies have taken over the whole planet. And for people like us, we the people, we don't necessarily like where this is taking us. And if you don't see it, then I don't know what to tell you. But let's move on. I think we will conclude this little brief, tiny little understanding here of this first set. And this is the first set of recordings talking about the laws of free will. It's a very complicated thing, but it's also a very simple thing. Overthinking things is never good if you're not geared for that sort of thinking. Boiling things down to its most simplistic form is always great because it's easy to explain to other people that way. Especially when you're dealing with something like righteousness system, which is part of creation, which is what this universe is, which is part of this galaxy and all the other galaxies. That's just how it works. So it's a good idea sometimes to just simplify things, especially in this complicated world where data is being thrown at us, ideologies are being thrown at us, everything's being thrown at us like 500 miles an hour. Non-stop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Never stops. And there's a reason for that. And it's a world system agenda. But it's happening this way for a reason. Believe me when I tell you. So understanding who and what you are, especially in terms of, hey, these are the cornerstone laws of free will, and this is the mechanism by which it works. This is how it really functions. You know, you don't need massive mathematics to understand it. Now, if you have massive mathematics and can understand it that way, that's even better, but we don't need it. We don't need it. This is not common life in the commons that people have massive degrees in mathematics. We don't need to understand it like that. We just need to simplify it and take a look so we can use it and harness it now, here and now. Right here, right now. Okay, so we're going to call this set of recordings done. So hopefully you'll go and check out the next set of recordings in the next page. And that one, that one's going to be kind of interesting. Oh, by the way, please do yourselves a favor and check out my books. I have been doing this for a long time, explaining this stuff for a long time. There is at least a couple of books in there that are going to appeal to you no matter what kind of background you're coming from. And they are explained in such a way where it's not some dry, boring, okay, well, here's a textbook. You've got a test on the 2nd February of the end of the semester. It's not like that. It's not some dry, boring stuff. Please do check them out. I really need the support, okay? And I'm not kidding, because I'm doing all this because the planet needs it. But, you know, I have things I need to do too. So if you can help me out a little bit, please do help me out a little bit.